Hello everyone and welcome to a new book vlog. First of all, I wanted to say a huge thank you for all of your lovely messages and congratulations on my last video. They really all meant so much to me. I'm so excited to be having a book coming out this year, and it was just amazing to read so many of your comments and to hear that you're excited about it too. It was just really touching, and I really appreciate those of you who took the time to send a lovely message. So thank you so much. It really made my week. But I've been looking forward to today's video, and what I want to do in this video is I want to share some recommendations for books that I think make wonderful reading to guide you through all of the seasons of the year. So I've gathered together some diaries, journals, anthologies, brilliant collections of nature writing, just generally books that I love that carry you through each season of the year. You know I love my seasonal reading. That's a big part of my reading life and my identity as a reader. I love to read in tune with the seasons. Not everything, not all books, but I do always like to have some books on the go that just help me appreciate the changing seasons and the natural world around me. So I wanted to share some of my recommendations for those of you who also like to read in this way and have a bit of seasonal reading inspiration through every month of the year. So let's start with the first book, which is a huge favourite of mine. It's called Nature's Calendar: The British Year in 72 Seasons, and it's by a few contributors: Kira Chapman, Lula Ellender, Rowan James and Rebecca Warren. I love the idea behind this book. It says that this book is inspired by a traditional Japanese calendar that divides the year into segments of 5 or 6 days. So this book guides you through a year of 72 seasons as they manifest in the British Isles. I really love that idea, and it's something I very much notice. I try to get out for a walk, even if it's just a 5 or a 10-minute walk most days. And one of the huge pleasures of my walk in the countryside or in the garden is to notice how rapidly things change week by week. For instance, when I was out this morning, I just noticed that the aconites as well as the snowdrops are now out. I love seeing aconites. There's just such a cheerful yellow flower, and it's just amazing to notice changes like that week by week, and it really helps me to just appreciate the present moment as well. And one of the reasons I love this book so much is that it celebrates those tiny changes that occur throughout the seasons. And I love this idea, based on a traditional Japanese calendar, of dividing up the year into 72 sort of mini seasons. I think that's just such a wonderful idea. But what I really like about this book is the incredible nature writing. All of the authors are brilliant, and it's just a really beautiful, inspiring read. So this is a real favourite of mine. If you want a book to pick up and just enjoy all through the year, then this is a really lovely one. I'm a huge fan of John Clare's poetry, and I have to recommend this lovely edition of his The Shepherd's Calendar. I think he's one of the most amazing nature poets. There are so many beautiful descriptions of nature in this, and I also love the woodcuts by Carrie Ackroyd that illustrate this edition of his Shepherd's Calendar. It goes month by month through the year, and for any of you who love the British countryside poetry, I'm sure a lot of you have discovered John Clare's poetry already, but I actually really do recommend reading The Shepherd's Calendar and enjoying all of his poetry all through each season. It's really very special, and I think would make a lovely project for the year. So I wanted to share this favourite of mine. And then another huge favourite is Four Hedges by Claire Leighton. Again, this is a book to enjoy not only for the beautiful writing, but also for the incredible artwork. Claire Leighton was a brilliant writer as well as an amazing artist, and she has illustrated her words for this book. And again, these woodcut illustrations are so gorgeous. Claire Leighton was a very keen gardener, so this book describes her experiences gardening and her garden. It starts off in April, so in the springtime, and then it goes through the year. And I love dipping in and out of this one. It really is such a beautiful book. I love her prose, but it also is such a pleasure to look at the gorgeous artwork too. So this is one of my favourite books by Claire Leighton. I really recommend this one. And then I recently picked up a couple new books kind of in this theme to inspire me this year. One is The Blackbird's Song and Other Wonders of Nature, a year-round guide to connecting with the natural world by Miles Richardson. And what I like about this book is how practical it is in terms of inspiring you to get outside and to enjoy nature. There's lots of recommendations for activities to do through each season and month of the year. So it's just quite a practical as well as well-written and interesting guide to enjoying the seasons and exploring the natural world. So this one looks like it will be a fun read, and it's one I'm enjoying already. And then again, another quite practical book to help you get out and appreciate the world around you is this new book by Melissa Harrison, Homecoming, a guided journal to lead you back to nature. And this is really interesting because it is part nature writing, part inspiration, and part journal. So there is space where you can write in this book. And I sort of like this and I sort of don't. I have a bit of a problem with like writing in books like this. I'd rather have a sort of separate just notebook that I write sort of nature observations into. But I think what's nice about this is you can either choose to write in it, or you can choose to keep a separate notebook for your nature notebook, but still use Melissa Harrison's prompts and enjoy reading the introductions that she poses to each season, which is the way that I'd like to use this book. So it's beautifully illustrated, and there are nice little sort of notes and ideas about how to appreciate the world around you more, really whether you live in the countryside or in a town or city. And then at the start of each month, there's some lovely writing by Melissa Harrison, and it gives you some ideas of what to look out for in this month or season. So it's just a really nice inspiration for keeping a nature journal, I think, and it looks like a really beautiful book and one to inspire through the year. And it's nice that you can read this one as well as write in it if you want to. So that is a really nice addition, I think. And then I love this book, A Country Calendar and Other Writings by Flora Thompson. This is a collection of some of Flora Thompson's writings, for instance, that were taken from articles that she wrote and things like that. And there's some poetry and just other collections of her writing, but the bit I especially like is what is referred to as a country calendar, and that starts in January and it goes through the year. So it's sort of a bit into the book that a country calendar begins. And this is a collection of some articles that Flora Thompson originally wrote for a magazine, but they're just so beautiful. I mean, I love her books, Lark Rise to Candleford, Candleford Green, you know, all of those ones. I know many of you do as well. They're such beautiful memoirs of Flora's life growing up in the English countryside. But I do love her country calendar that's been collected in this book as well. It just makes beautiful reading. And if you're a fan of Lark Rise to to Candleford, then I would recommend looking out for this. It is only available secondhand, but worth seeking out. And then another secondhand anthology that I really like is the Brontë Yearbook by Juliet Barker. And this is a lovely anthology that takes you day by day through the year. And it starts off in January. There are some lovely illustrations all through this book. And then there are either poems or extracts by the Brontes, obviously the famous Bronte sisters, Emily, Charlotte and Anne, but there's also selections taken from Branwell Bronte's writing, Patrick Bronte's, so it's really of the Bronte family. Of course, as I live in Yorkshire, the Bronte territory, I find this book an especially interesting read and a lovely guide through the year. But for anyone who's a fan of the Brontes, this would definitely be an interesting one to add to your collection. And then a diary anthology I really have to recommend is this one, A Year of Women's Diaries. It's called Secret Voices and it's edited by Sarah Gristwood. This makes such fascinating reading. It's just a wonderful anthology on the female experience, essentially. So many different women, different diaries. I think there's over 100 different diaries used in this book, and it covers many time periods, many perspectives, generations of women writers, and it just is so interesting. There are often quite a few entries by different female diarists under each day of the year. So there's quite a lot to read. You can see it's a bit of a whopper, but it's just so interesting. Such a great idea for a diary anthology and one that I've been really enjoying. So I wanted to highlight this one too. And then you know how much I love Ronald Blythe's writings. So I had to again recommend this anthology of his essays and columns that he wrote for the Church Times. This is a really nice compilation of his writings that takes you month by month through the year. So again, it starts in January, and it's just a wonderful collection of his writing. There are some contributions by other writers too who reflect on Ronald Blythe's writing or on their friendship with him. There are quite a few other nature writers that have contributed to this anthology as well, which is really nice. So if you're also a fan of Ronald Blythe, then this is definitely a wonderful anthology. But if you don't know his work, then he really just wrote so well about literature, about landscape, about place, about faith. It's just a really beautiful anthology. His writing is incredible, so I really do recommend this one. And then I fairly recently got this anthology of diaries, which was edited by Ronald Blythe, Each Returning Day, The Pleasure of Diaries. This one isn't arranged seasonally. You'd have to sort of look through it yourself to find the seasonal extracts, but it's got really interesting headings for the selections that he's chosen. So he's got, for instance, the diary as eyewitness, and he talks about different diarists and diaries that fit under this heading. He's got the diarist in love, the diarist in the difficult marriage, the diarist in the village, the diarist as naturalist, the sick diarist, the diarist in the shop, the diarist at war, diaries and royalty, the diarist as artist, the diarist in despair. Just very interesting headings and a really interesting selection of diaries. What I also like about this book is Ronald Blythe gives quite a detailed biography of each of the diarists that he chooses at the beginning, and then he shares a selection of diary entries. So it's very well edited and one that I've been really enjoying. Again, this is a secondhand one. It's no longer in print, but worth seeking out if you can find it. Then another wonderful nature writer is Jim Crumley, and he wrote a quartet of books following each of the seasons. He wrote The Nature of Spring, Summer, Autumn, and Winter. And this is a kind of reworking of those 4 volumes into 1 volume. But again, it's arranged season by season through the year. I think it starts with autumn. And he is just such a wonderful modern nature writer that this is definitely one that you would enjoy if you're a fan of contemporary nature writing. Definitely one to try. So I recommend this. And then another second-hand one is this lovely little volume, Richard Adams' A Nature Diary, and it's beautifully illustrated by John Lawrence. Richard Adams wrote the very famous Watership Down, but this is his sort of personal nature diary that covers his travels throughout the Lake District, for instance. I also think he goes to Australia and writes about what he encounters there. Also London, and he manages to find plenty of nature in London too. But it's just a really lovely little nature diary by an incredible writer. And I love the illustrations in this one too, really charming. So it just is a lovely one to flick through each season, the type of book that's nice to have on your bedside table. So I've recommended this quite a few times before, but I wanted to recommend it again. And if you can find a secondhand copy, then it is definitely worth it. So I've got another big stack here. This is another book that I've recommended many times. It's The Country Diaries, A Year in the British Countryside, edited, I think, by Alan Turner, if that's correct. Yeah, Alan Taylor. And I really like this one. It's a collection of writers living in the British countryside or reflecting on the trials and tribulations of life in the British countryside or describing what they see in the countryside. And I really enjoy that. Obviously, living in the countryside myself, this really speaks to me. But it's just a very well edited anthology with a wide range of different entries, and there is an entry for every day of the year. So it's one of those books that you can read day by day through the year, which is really fun. And then another similar one in that way, and that goes day by day through the year, is Wonderland, A Year of Britain's Wildlife, Day by Day, by Brett Westwood and Stephen Moss. And again, this is a lovely book to pick up each day. It's a reflection on a certain aspect of the natural world each day. So for instance, in January, there are entries on black squirrels, yew trees and hawfinches, wild boar, unseasonal hogweed, field vole, black redstart. So it's a great book if you want to find out a bit more about nature and animals that you encounter in the countryside, birds. It's a really wonderful way to just learn a bit more about the natural world. So that's a great book for those who just want to find out more. And then an utterly fascinating book is this one, The English Year, a month-by-month guide to the nation's customs and festivals, from May Day to Mischief Night, by Steve Rudd. This is just such an enthralling read, and it just shares so much information. I love the questions that are on the back of the book. Where does maypole dancing come from? Why should you protect yourself on Mischief Night in April? Where is the Devil's Stone turned every November? Why is there an annual clown service in London? Who was Jack in the Green and when does he appear? And why should you always wear new clothes at Easter? And this book answers all of those questions and plenty more too. It's just so interesting, a real favourite of mine. So definitely one I wanted to recommend. And then if you've been enjoying, which I hope you have, The Morville Hours by Catherine Swift for this month's Comfort Book Club read. And by the way, The Comfort Book Club video would normally be going up next Thursday, on the last Thursday of the month, but I'm having to alter my schedule a little bit, so it'll actually be going up next Sunday instead, which I think is the 2nd of February. So it will just be a few days late. But if you've been enjoying that one, then definitely pick up the Morville Year, which is also by Catherine Swift. And it's just a wonderful companion volume to the Morville Hours, and it goes month by month through the year. And there's some lovely colour photographs of her garden in this book too. So just a really nice companion read to the Morville Hours. Now, one of my absolute favourite poetry anthologies, and it's one of the ones I've had the longest, you can see it's had a lot of wear, and it's Poem for the Day, and there's volume 1 and volume 2. I really like both volumes. And I first got this, I think, either as a teenager or in my early 20s. I remember being at university, my first year at university, and reading one of these poems every day. And I think that played actually a big part in really developing my love for poetry anthologies and having the habit of reading some poetry or a bit of prose every day. And it's such a wonderful practice. And this book really started me off on that, and it's still one of my favourite poetry anthologies. I'm not even sure if it's in print still anymore. It was published by Chatto and Windus, but it really is well worth seeking out. I just love it. Both volumes are really good, and I mean, it says what's on the cover. There's a poem for every day of the year, but I like that they always include a little bit of information about the poet and about the day that the poem is chosen from. So a real favourite anthology of mine. But I love many poetry anthologies, as you know. Another huge favourite of mine are the ones done by Batsford and edited by Jane McMullen Hunter. So I love her A Nature Poem for every day of the year. There's also a companion volume that's a nature poem for every night of the year, which is wonderful too. This is a real favourite of mine. And another favourite of mine is the Bedside Companion for Book Lovers, an anthology of literary delights for every night of the year. And this is edited by Jane McMullen Hunter as well. This is such a fun one for any book lover. I really love this one. And then for the gardeners amongst you, or those like me who aren't huge gardeners but love to read about gardens, I really do like Monty Don's books so much. His My Garden World is really wonderful, and this is a lovely one to take you through every month of the year. And there's some beautiful photographs in this book too, which I so enjoy looking at. I always just adore his dogs. I can't get enough photos of his beautiful dogs. So I really love that. And then this one I don't think is in print anymore, but if you can find it, it's well worth seeking out, and that's The Ivington Diaries. This is beautiful too, and a bit bigger, which is nice because, again, there are some lovely photographs in this one, and it's just such an attractive volume, having large photo spreads like that on the page. I really enjoy that. But I love his words too. He's a wonderful writer. So I do love that one too. And then also, I love Nigel Slater's writing so much. I've spoken quite a few times about how much I love his kitchen diaries. I think there are 3 volumes in his kitchen diaries now. This is the first one. I have all 3 and I love them all. He's just such a wonderful writer, and I love how these part journals, part cookbooks really go day by day, or almost day by day, through the year. There are always lots of entries under each month, and it's just so nice when you love to try to eat with the seasons a bit as well. There's always a lot of inspiration for seasonal eating and living from Nigel Slater in these books, and I just love his beautiful writing too. So these are the sorts of cookbooks that I love to read as much as I like to cook from, and I think they're really special. And then finally, I wanted to just share A Year Unfolding, A Printmaker's View by Angela Harding. This is just a gorgeous book to maybe have on your coffee table to enjoy all through the year because it's packed full of Angela Harding's amazing illustrations. Her artwork is just always so beautiful and inspired by nature, which I love. And it just makes a really beautiful book to read, but just to look at too, to admire all of her lovely artwork through it. So this is just a stunning coffee table book, and one that's nice to just have out to enjoy all through the year. So that's my final recommendation for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. I did a sort of similar video to this a few years ago now, so I'll put a link to that in the video description box as well. So you can check that one out too for even more recommendations on this theme. But do let me know if you enjoy reading a bit in tune with the seasons, if you like anthologies like this, and what you're reading at the moment. I'd love to know. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you again for all of your lovely messages on my last video. Extra big thanks to those of you who pressed the super thanks button on my last video too. I so appreciate your support. But I'll be back again next Thursday with another video. Goodbye.